the desert of the real.
Welcome to the Desert of the Real. I'm your host, Ryan Hudson. Joined with me, as always, is your fearless co-host,
Jason D.
Today we're a little bit tired.
Yeah.
We're going to be a little bit more relaxed, maybe.
Maybe. There's still something to be pissed off about.
I don't know. We'll see. This is the Desert of the Real, a movie podcast where I forced Jason to watch movies he did not think were worth his time. We are currently going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are almost all the way done.
Hallelujah!
We are two high school English/film/philosophy/creativity teachers with graduate degrees, and we attempt to use our academic training to dig deeply into movies. We explore the creativity, philosophy, ethics, and film studies of all of our movies, and we push you, the listener, to think critically about your own entertainment. Dr. Dietz.
Master Hudson.
How are you?
I'm very tired today.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Are we going to have a couch session here?
Yeah, this is going to be...
I tell you, real life is kicking my butt.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Ain't that just the way?
It is.
I'm just joking.
That's okay. I'm still here doing what I love.
Hey,
so.
You know what? Dr. Dietz, you and I have both sat through many professional development where there's a metaphor of juggling where there's different...
Spherical objects.
Yes, we are aware of...
Crystal spheres.
There's crystal spheres. We were trying to avoid saying the word balls. We could say balls. Nothing's wrong with saying balls. What I'm trying to say in professional development, we have lead spherical objects.
Balls.
Lead balls. We got rubber balls and crystal balls.
True.
You got to take care of the crystal.
Yes.
Don't let it shatter. That's spending time with family. That's doing things you need to do. Lead balls, just drop. You don't want those. They're weighing you down.
It's true.
Rubber balls can bounce back up.
Okay.
You can drop those.
Bye. This has been good.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is...
This is a lead ball.
This is a crystal ball.
Crystal ball. My bad. I misread that. Shoot.
Jeez.
That's embarrassing.
That was a very long way to say. I like this time. We got to hang out
I do too.
in our week.
I love this. This is one of the things that enables me to relax.
I think, we're both a little tired. I don't know. This might
be a punch drunk episode.
This might be, but it's also, I don't know how this isn't going to be a deep episode.
Yeah,
emotionally deep.
I don't do emotionally deep.
Well, I am.
Okay.
Hey, listener, fair warning. I might get emotional.
Oh.
I got emotional at the Doctor Strange one.
You did.
Yeah, which is weird because that's not an emotional movie. But this movie is emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Okay, this is what I'll say. This is just my summary of Wakanda Forever. It has the worst MCU tropes, but it also has, I would say, the most emotional, satisfying. It's the most emotionally satisfying movie out of all the MCU.
Okay.
Which is why this is complicated, because I think it's a good movie. I think this movie, we talked a couple weeks ago about Doctor Strange, where it's like, look how there's just style here. And not all of them can do that, or not all of them can say that, but this movie has style. It has like an author pointing the camera, and it looks nice a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But then it's got like, the whole climax is so just frustratingly bad, in my opinion. It looks like a kid with two action figures in each hand, slamming them back like against each other. That's what it looks like to me. There's no weight to these characters at the end. I'm just diving into what my biggest frustration is, because I think there's so much to appreciate. It's what makes those moments so frustrating, I guess.
Yeah.
The same year this movie came out, there was another big epic scale movie that dealt with blue people underwater. Do you know what I'm alluding to?
Smurfs 3. where they go into the water tunnel, right?
You silly person. No, it's in Avatar 2, or not it's Avatar The Way of Water. There's not a 2 there. You don't need to roll your eyes at me.
Avatar is a movie that did not need a sequel.
Okay, it's not a shameless cash grab. It
It's
took him 12 years to
perfect.
make. It took him.
Avatar is perfect.
Yeah, okay. We're not getting at Avatar because Avatar 2 is good. It's like yeah, not yet. Ayo. I'm not. That's way down the line of big blockbuster movies. But anyway, here's the thing I'm trying to get to.
Avatar for this.
The last like 30, maybe 40 minutes of Way of Water is this exciting, thrilling kind of fight scene between this family and these bad guys here. And it's in a ship that's kind of sinking. It's super interesting. A lot of cool things happen. And then you watch Wakanda Forever and it's like, here's the least interesting ship imaginable fighting these water people. And it's just weird that in the same year... 2 separate water clan people and it's like
that are blue.
It's like almost impossible. You're like, oh, this is kind of boring. Maybe because the same year I saw this, one was way more interesting.
No, it was just boring.
It is boring, which is too bad because this movie a lot of good things.
Yeah,
I'm getting ahead of myself.
We're just where we are.
We are where we are. What is that? What's a philosophy? Buddhism. We are where we are.
Be where you are.
My brother, a couple mailbag things here and there.
Yeah.
My brother wanted to point out, last week we did Werewolf by Night. Mm-hmm. And we're like, how come horror movies have these characters? You don't even need to see the movies. You just know who they are.
Yeah.
And he's like, Ryan, you're doing a superhero podcast. There are superheroes that fit that description. You don't need to have seen a Superman movie to know exactly who Superman is. Yeah. And I would also wager... Batman is the same way. Maybe you don't know Batman, a guy who dresses like a bat. You can make connections there without seeing any movies.
Yeah, because it's a bat.
I wanted to point out, though, I asked the internet thoughts on Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
We didn't get a lot of responses. We're a little podcast. We're an indie podcast.
We're an indie podcast.
But Stu, world over, just wanted to highlight that Angela Bassett delivers a goddess-like performance, and she deserved... she is a beast in this one. She was up for best she was up for best supporting actress. Didn't win. Rewatching this, I think she should have won.
Maybe.
This was up the same year as Everything Everywhere All at Once.
There was Google up Angela Bassett.
She's the mom.
Oh, okay.
I am queen.
Yeah,
I have lost everyone, and it's that
scene was amazing.
It's a powerhouse.
That scene was awesome. Yeah,
that scene alone deserves her to win. Have I not given everything? Yeah. The person who won is Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it's not like a big in your face performance, so it kind of felt like that. A win was more like, you've been in this industry for so long, you've given so much.
Your time.
It's kind of, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, that's too bad. Generally, I thought it was pretty basic as far as plot goes.
Yeah.
It's just a basic Marvel movie, nothing new, really. I did recognize the powerful moments of pathos, and they all hit. As far as I was concerned, like I felt it and accepted that, yeah, that's a real emotion. But for me, what I found the most interesting in this movie was its insistence on looking at various dichotomies. And so, like, when we get to, my part, whatever, that's what we'll be looking at, is the dichotomies. So, I don't know, that's my general sense of it. There you go.
I think this movie is especially emotional compared to other movies that are emotional, is because obviously Chadwick Boseman died in real life. Mm-hmm. I believe that the original plan was, they were writing this movie before he died.
So they had to rewrite the movie?
Yeah. So I think the original plan was something along the lines of Black Panther is a king in Wakanda. Well, Namor is also a king. But then Chadwick Boseman dies. And here is the thing. So this movie came out in 2022. And in August 28th, 2020, Boseman died from colon cancer. Coogler stated that he had been unaware of Boseman's illness and had spent the last year preparing, imagining, and writing words for him to say in the film that we weren't destined to see. Feige and other executives at Marvel Studios were also unaware of Boseman's illness. Boseman, who had become thinner from his illness in the weeks prior to his death, had been preparing to begin gaining the weight back in September 2020 ahead of the filming the sequel in March 2021. He appeared in a movie called The Five Bloods. It's on Netflix. I actually haven't seen it yet. I know I need to. It's the last film he's been in. And people were like quick to point out his weight. It's like, why is he so skinny? He's too skinny and stuff. But not even the director knew that he was going through colon cancer. Wow. And apparently he, no one's expecting to die. So basically, it's not like, what do you do? Do you recast him? Do you make another character Black Panther? Do you use... obviously, we're thankful that they didn't use like a digital double, like his face on someone else's body. Because, something vaguely similar happened in one of the Fast and Furious movies, 7, where Paul Walker died, and they hadn't finished filming the movie. And his brother in real life came in to film a few scenes, and they put, like, his face over. And somehow, Fast and Furious, not the biggest emotional blockbusters. No. However, somehow, it's a miracle. The ending of Furious 7 is so touching. Like a beautiful send-off. Jason rolled his eyes. I'm just trying to say in this...
Why do you say that? I can roll my eyes in private if I want.
This is a podcast, not a visual medium. An audio medium.
Roll my eyes for the listeners. Freaking Fast and the Furious. It's the most absurd series of movies ever made.
They are, and somehow there's a strangely emotional ending to the 7th one.
Cool.
Anyway, so obviously they chose to have a different character take on the mantle of Wakanda Forever. Like, there was a bunch of predictions, because that wasn't like announced. It wasn't like official that the sister was going to be the Black Panther. People thought M'Baku, what if he became the Panther? What if they brought back Michael B. Jordan to be the Panther? Like, there was a bunch of different ideas or theories and stuff, but ultimately it's the sister,
which I think is a very good choice.
Yeah, I think it works.
It makes it like this film. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like, but it sounds like a much richer film than it would have been. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and it's just the characters, or not even the characters, the actors don't really need to go that far to act. You know what I mean? Yeah. To say their goodbyes, especially like Angela Bassett and the sister, is Letitia Wright. Okay, Shuri's AI is called Griot. And I looked up what that was. Griot is an African tribal storyteller and musician. Griot's role was to preserve the genealogies and oral traditions of the tribe. They were usually among the oldest men in the tribe. So that's what she names her AI, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Because on one hand, it's like it's got a specific meaning in the world, but at the other time, she's in control of it. There's one point where she tells her AI to not tell her something. So it's like she's rejecting its role of... Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that type of thing. Yeah. Tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that little detail is really cool. And also Namor. Were you at all aware of Namor? Namor at all?
Like Sea Mariner?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a comic book character, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's, Marvel's Aquaman. He's kind of summed up. I didn't know this, but Namor gets his name originally because... it's Roman backwards. And, it's usually Atlantis themed.
Right.
But I love, this is new for this movie. Let's take the Aztec thing.
The Mayans.
And is it Mayans? Sorry.
Pretty sure.
I mean, but it's so cool that they take a new concept to put in Namor and his people. I think that's all cool. It's also a new fun way to get a different culture into these movies.
Yeah, which is also like the Mayan culture is really cool because it's still here.
Yeah.
Like a lot, actually pretty, like a lot of the, especially native South American cultures have just been written over by the Spanish culture.
Yeah.
But there are still Mayans alive. And the Mayans were on par with, the Egyptians and the Chinese, like in terms of like scientific advancement, in terms of culture. And so I think I really liked that they chose to have him be Mayan.
Yeah. Because like Wakanda's just a kind of a hodgepodge of African traditions and
right,
things.
Which is weird. Like it wasn't weird in the first movie, but in this movie I was like, was it that way in the first movie?
Because you love the first movie.
I did
you
really
said
like it.
It would be a perfect movie if it wasn't
a Marvel
movie.
Yeah, but I think this movie felt a lot smaller than the first one. Like, just in terms of its... Like, it felt like Wakanda in the first movie was this unbounded empire.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, it feels very, very small. Like, almost one city big.
Kind of visually, too.
You're right. And so it wasn't... Like, I didn't have the same reaction to the panoply of African cultures in this one that I did in the last one.
Right.
Because if it is that small, those cultures are not likely to be coexisting.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wasn't that big of a fan of this movie as a movie. But as like a vehicle for bringing up dichotomies and ideas that we don't deal with a lot, I thought it was really good.
Okay, because I knew going in Namor, they're fighting each other, but Namor is like usually a good guy,
right?
And looking up things, he's sometimes antagonistic to certain characters and stuff. Right. But like Doctor Strange had the Illuminati. He's a member of the Illuminati though. Like he's involved in the heroes. Right. So I knew going in he's not gonna die. He's probably not going to be all evil. And I like how they make his conflict work. It's like, oh, we just don't want to be discovered. We just have to get rid of this the thing. And we're like, well, we're not gonna let you kill a person. And making your face.
I mean, it's just utilitarianism again. But
it's also okay. They also mentioned that he was a mutant, and he is often considered the first mutant in comics because it's before the X-Men came out. And I mean, as far as I understood, what I looked up, he existed before most of all other things. X-Men's like the one untapped thing in the MCU. Like,
right, which is super weird because that's like growing like in my era, the X-Men were the top of Marvel. And everyone knew, Storm and Wolverine, and I think it's really interesting that they basically just opted out of the X-Men.
Well, they didn't have rights to it.
Oh, is that why?
They do now, and they're trying to trickle things in, like with the Deadpool and stuff.
And Professor X, apparently.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's, I think...
Who is now dead, R.I.P.
Well, that version of him, you know what I mean. That's where I think MCU should focus on, because basically there is a whole encyclopedia worth of X-Men stuff. Throughout the movie, I was just, once again, Ryan Coogler comes back to direct. It's like, this is a actual looking film in a lot of, like, just shots, how you just see things. And going back to, like, what I said it's just frustrating that every now and then it's like, ooh, that doesn't look super good.
Yeah.
So the first fight with the Talokans on the bridge, there's like no music. It's just the sound of them fighting. And it's, I think, really cool. And it has this cool, the water grenade explosion. Which
those were awesome.
But then when they're fighting, you get this wide shot. And it's like, oh, they're clearly just in front of a screen right now. They're not.
Right.
It's not. They're not there. And like, and you know, I don't know how, as anyone wanting to criticize movies, I actually don't think we should put too much weight on visuals. Because if it works, you know, it works.
It's like a major component of a movie.
I know, but it's like, oh, if only if it looked better. But if it touched your soul, if it made you think, you know, it's maybe not as valuable. But it's hard to get past that final battle. None of it. It looks like a cartoon.
Yeah.
And which is just frustrating. There's even, like you said, Wakanda just feels smaller for some reason.
Yeah.
There's like one new set where it's by the water, and you know, you could just kind of see where the set ends.
Yeah.
There's a part where you have like M'Baku and his men just standing guard, and it's like they're just floating.
Guarding nothing.
They're guarding nothing.
Yeah.
Every shot and whenever you get like cool shots of Namor like flying, jumping back and forth, it's the entire thing is CGI. So now it looks incredible all of a sudden. It's not playing with a photorealistic background. It's like, it's just all CGI. So it just looks so much better because it's all made in the computer. Anyway, I don't know. You know what I mean? I want to think of a movie without taking the equations into consideration. Like, oh, the points, the rating, the graphics, yada, yada, yada.
4.5. I don't know, but at some point the storytelling suffers because the movie looks bad. I think. I don't know.
I love the first thing. You don't even see it. You hear Shuri praying, like, please save my brother.
Yeah.
And now it's the whole movie then becomes like a loss of faith story.
Right.
Prove me. She never had faith really to begin with. If you look at the first movie, she's like, oh, tradition. You can't imagine what I have to wear during the water ceremony. It's like, it's just, I do it, but I'm more in like,
right.
You never get the feeling that she's super religious and stuff.
Right. So that's one of our dichotomies.
I want to show you this graph. It's conflicts in nature. We're all familiar with like the 5 or 6 main conflicts: man versus man versus nature, man versus self, man versus God. So I was unaware of some of these. It's broken down in classical, what we usually got from our stories, then modern, how stories have been changing, and then there's the postmodern. And it's also, the one I'm showing you is all using Daffy Duck as examples, which is kind of fun. Mm-hmm. But I feel like maybe in our English classes we might hear about man versus God, because back in the day with myths and legends, it's literal gods you have to face sometimes. Right. But in the modernist column, it's man versus no God. It's like, well, now you have to deal with the conflict of losing faith all of a sudden. Right. And or
the idea that this is all there is.
Exactly. And that's what she's going through in this movie. She's like trying to hold on to faith, and like she has the whole ceremony with her mom. It's
she? I don't think she is.
Well, she does. She just prays at the beginning, so
right
by herself. The one time she's alone, I think.
Right, which is really interesting. A dichotomy. So the faith versus, science is our standard dichotomy. It's really interesting. At various points in this movie, even though she's supposedly the scientist, she turns to faith because science fails.
Yeah.
So my personal favorite scene in this movie was the scene where they're supposed to be burning his things.
Right.
And Namor shows up, but before Namor shows up, it's very raw.
Yeah.
And the mother is, trying to I feel like kind of trying to rescue her daughter from science, from this reliance on technology over, you know.
Yeah, I wrote that. The mom's trying to use religion to comfort the daughter. Like, I felt your brother in the breeze. And she's like, that wasn't him. That was just the breeze, and you're making a connection in your mind. And so
I think my favorite line of this movie is, Shuri's like, yeah, he's gone, he's dead, blah, blah, blah. That's what science tells us. And she says, like, what construct does your mind create when you think of your brother? Does it offer you comfort or torment? And I think ultimately that's the question that resonates the most with me in terms of this dichotomy. So in terms of the scope of our lives, what is going to bring us more happiness, more comfort, whatever? And that's ultimately up to everyone, but I think that is the core question we need to be asking when we're talking about faith versus science. You know, you can argue against faith. Oh, it's just, you know, the frenzied mind or the opiate of the masses or whatever. And you can offer the same argument against science. It's not ever going to answer anything. It just keeps getting closer and closer and closer to an answer. And so when we're talking about this dichotomy, I think that's a super important question. Do you find comfort? Does it bring you satisfaction? Does it bring you like a sense of peace? Or is it constantly causing you to ask questions, to be dissatisfied, to be empty? And whichever of those two answers that, I think that's what we have to embrace. This movie eventually embraces the faith side. She, you know, comes back to, you know, she accepts being Black Panther. She, you know, accepts the faith of her ancestors. That's not the only answer to the dichotomy, but ultimately,
I'm just thinking about our listeners. Dichotomy, can you break that?
So dichotomies are they're either or. In my opinion, it is a rhetorical fallacy to create a dichotomy. So like the faith versus science dichotomy, why does it have to be all one or all the other? It doesn't. And that's again what this movie suggests. Like, Shuri is completely science. At least she's trying to be completely science.
Right.
And we see the weakness in the dichotomy. Science by itself is not sufficient. Faith by itself in this movie is not sufficient. The truth is somewhere in between. And why do faith and science have to be exclusive? They don't. The truth is in the middle. Faith is science, and science is faith. And we just find our place wherever it is in there that brings us, like she says, like offers us comfort, alleviates torment, helps us live a rich, full life.
She literally asks, like, because I love how they build on. I mean, they didn't know Chadwick was going to die. In the first movie, they burnt all the flowers, you know, to kind of get rid of like a Wakanda, like a Black Panther problem type of thing. But now it's like, well, we need a new Black Panther now. And she even says, how does it make sense the ancestors gave me skills and talents to help, but I couldn't? So it's like, I have all this science in my brain, and I couldn't do the thing I wanted to do with it. And then she uses her science to make
faith.
To make the plant. And I noticed this, or like kind of using like using a theology lens, I suppose. She takes the plant, and then she has her vision, which she didn't know was going to happen. And do you think she was expecting to see her brother, or was she looking for a reason to be angry? And
I mean, if she was hardcore science, she has to have expected nothing to happen, which would have reinforced her prejudice against faith, and then she could have let that go and gone hard science. But that's not what happened.
So, because she gets out of the vision trance and she's mad. It's like that it didn't work for her, and the ancestors didn't come, and that she did all the rituals for nothing.
But they did come.
But it did work.
Right.
And that's how I guess faith works sometimes.
Well, I think, yeah, definitely. In addition to that's how faith works sometimes, that experience illustrates the problem with either or thinking.
Yeah.
Because, like, she used science to get there.
Yep.
And because it wasn't what she wanted, she just, at least she tries. I don't think she honestly believes it didn't work, but she tries to say, well, it failed, even though she knows darn well it didn't.
Yeah.
So she's trying to hold on to this false dichotomy that she has, but ultimately the evidence mounts sufficient that she has to let it go. And so she moves somewhere into the middle of the continuum between faith and science, which I thought was very satisfying. Just her recognition that, okay, there is a place for faith in science, and there is a place for science and faith.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. I liked that.
Actually, that reminds me of one of my movie recommendations of the reel. Like, before she's about to kill Namor at the end, she sees her brother in her mind, but she also sees her mom. Because at this point, her mom has died.
Right.
There's a movie and the book called Silence. There's a Martin Scorsese film about these Jesuit priests going to Japan where Christianity is illegal, and they're trying to find another priest. And what the authorities do in Japan, they don't try to punish them for preaching Christianity. They're trying to get them to denounce Christianity by punishing the Japanese citizens, and it's this whole movie. I won't tell you how it ends, but it's like, how do you hold on until like the end type of thing? Like, you're on this path of destruction. Anyway,
so it doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how she's just upset. Her brother died and she's just emotional. And she has the line that says she wants to make the world suffer type of thing. And, maybe she means it, maybe she doesn't. But Namor gives her the opportunity to literally do that.
Yep.
It's like, hey, we have my city and your city. We are powerful. Why don't we just
run the world?
Run the world.
Yeah. So
now she literally is forced to actually like self-reflect.
So that you bring up another dichotomy that I noticed, the like duty versus personal desire, because like Shuri's character is the focal point of all of these dichotomies. She has this duty by halfway through to be like the queen, the ruler of Wakanda. And so where before her duty was just to be the daughter of the ruler of Wakanda and just kind of do her thing, she realizes that there isn't a place for her personal desire to trump her duty any longer. And but her personal desire is still there. She just chooses to accept her duty, like what her people need and what they expect of her, over what she wants and needs. And ultimately that's the choice, I think, that makes like that heals everything. And so but do you think that's a legitimate answer? Should our duties always, should our duty come first over our personal desire? What do you think?
It's always fun to be on the other end of because
the asking the question thing.
Because I ask questions all the time in English class, and it's always, it depends. It depends. I'm like, yes, it does, but what would now it's like, because it's almost tempting. Just it depends. Ooh. Okay. On one hand, your family duties.
Sure.
Say you're a father.
Yeah. And
what if you want to do something, but that means you don't get but you got to do father things first. Yeah. That's maybe not right, but I don't know, let's say There's just a activity you want to do, which is just for you, but that would mean you're stepping away from spending time with your kids.
Right.
That's not right.
Is it?
Well,
Isn't it?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking at this with my kids are little.
Yeah.
And they don't have, like my kids, if I'm not with them doing something, that time's not coming back. They don't, at the moment, they don't have like their own friends. They're just little.
Right.
Like they don't have their own lives as much type of thing. So like I only have a few years of that kind of before they start wanting to be with other people.
It's true.
Or like look about our job. If I put my job, hang it up my duties to do something, I could get fired,
Sure.
So,
I mean, the same thing that you just said is true of our job, but in microcosm, you only have 3 months with a given set of students.
Yeah, every trimester or semester or whatever.
So it sounds like you're leaning towards duty should
I
trump
think,
personal desire.
I guess there's not a simple answer.
No.
I just think that's just how the world is. You are required to do things in this life. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do them, there will be consequences.
Yeah.
And I've made, it wasn't just me, but my wife, we wanted kids. Yeah. And I am now dedicated to that lifestyle, happily so,
Yeah.
I am in this job teaching. I want to teach here. I want to have a job. I will do what it takes to
fulfill your duty.
Fulfill my duty.
Yeah.
Even if there was something I was passionate about.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll say duty for the sake of argument, even though I know like we also need to grow as individuals no matter what. And expand our wings and anything.
Yeah. So that's, again, that dichotomy becomes a continuum.
Yeah.
So you're more towards the duty, but there's still got to be that personal desire, that personal stuff.
Yeah, even like this podcast.
Yeah.
We don't get paid.
No.
This is just because I like doing it.
This podcast is actually the very first thing in my married life that I've ever done myself outside of my family. So I completely agree with you. I've never had a hobby outside of my house. Mm-hmm. And so, I think, so I don't know if there's something inherently right about doing your duty to the people that you love or the people that you have responsibility for, but that does seem to be the way our society functions.
Yeah.
And so that, listener, that would be an interesting, if you're into, thinking critically about your social programming, that's a really interesting one. Mm-hmm. Because it's undeniable that society sure functions better when everyone does their duty.
Yeah.
And so is that something that society has convinced us is in our best interest? Or is it truly in our best interest to fulfill our responsibilities? I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's another one of those interesting dichotomies that aren't actually, they're actually a continuum.
Yeah.
There are more.
Do you have more?
In this movie, there's a lot more.
Let's just list them off.
Well, other dichotomies are like nobility versus like taking care of business from the dream or whatever it's called, the spirit walk. What is that called? Where she eats the flower and goes. Anyhow, whatever. She's interested in being noble and doing the noble thing, and that dead guy is like, you got to take care of business. That's a false dichotomy. Mm-hmm. You can take care, as Suri demonstrates in the end of the movie, you can take care of business and continue to be noble. Mm-hmm. In the, like, noble being like acting with compassion, acting with a sense that other people are observing and learning and judging, I suppose, but like you by your actions. And so taking care of business on the one hand means like going John Wick on everything, basically. Whereas nobility on the other hand is like this hyper aware sense that I have to fill a certain role, look a certain way, act a certain way in order to be respected or loved or whatever. The truth is somewhere in between. I push my students out of what is comfortable or noble and encourage them, I guess, to look back at what is noble and decide for themselves, is that noble? Is that what you want to be? Is that something that is been put into you by someone else that has other interests?
Yeah.
So, noble versus taking care of business. Mm-hmm. So this awareness of what other people see and think and judge us versus doing what we know needs to be done regardless of the consequences.
Yeah.
And again, this movie says, well, the truth isn't either or. It's somewhere, because she does take care of business, but in the end, she doesn't kill Namor, which would be the taking care of business. Mm-hmm. There's nobility there. There's this sense that, okay, I can't just destroy everything because I want it or because my people want it.
Yeah.
There's this nobility there. Other dichotomies are tradition versus progress, which we already kind of talked about, which is different, I think, from faith versus science. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes tradition is simply like in teaching, there's a lot of tradition.
Yeah.
That, we just do it because we've always done it.
Yeah.
And the other side is, okay, let's throw everything we've always done out and do these new things that have come up.
Yeah.
Either one of those is going to lead to failure in teaching, but I think also either one of those by themselves will lead to failure in life.
Yeah, that's the extreme example is the lottery.
Like Shirley Jackson.
Shirley Jackson's like, why do we do this thing? Yeah, it's just tradition.
Yeah. And so we need to become critical when we're examining both of those things. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah.
Just because it's tradition doesn't mean it's good either.
So it's somewhere in the middle, Dr.
We have to be critical and look at each piece and decide, does this tradition ennoble me? Does it enable me to do what I feel like I need to do? Does it feel right? Does it do, whatever? Can we think through it? And we need to start creating ourselves for ourselves rather than society says this or this group or whatever says this. So
sounds like critical thinking can solve a lot of problems in the world.
It can solve everything, honestly, I think. But
I've been somewhat dreading this episode.
Why?
I mean, on one hand, I've been super excited because you loved the first one.
I did.
And it's like, well, what will you think of this next one? And you just think it's okay. But you did give it 4 stars.
Yeah, because of this stuff that we're talking about.
It gives you a lot to think about and analyze.
Yeah.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
You do.
And I get choked up about things I don't even know why sometimes. And if I get too sad, I'll just edit out those parts. Just because. In 2022, my wife's brother, my brother-in-law, died when this movie came out. So by the time we saw this, it was still fresh enough where literally my wife just had to turn off her brain. She's like, I cannot, this is too much for me right now. So on one hand, watching this movie, it's connected to death and this fact that Chadwick Boseman, an actor who by all accounts was a good person, and not that I knew him at all, because he's a celebrity, but I've always had this personal connection to him because of the movie 42. I've maybe even brought this up. It's the day I saw 42. I can remember almost every detail about that day because of what was going on in my personal life. Starring Chadwick Boseman as Jackie Robinson. When he died, I got so sad. And Chadwick means so much to other people. He has this one interview you can listen to where he talked about these 2 kids who died from cancer. And it's like, he didn't realize how important his character was until these kids told him, and then like later died because he's like, oh, superheroes, whatever. It's like a movie. It's like Blockbuster. You eat popcorn, and that's all it is. But then he knew it's not just a movie. To a lot of people, it's a huge deal. These superheroes.
Yeah.
I guess you can never predict death.
Right.
I mean, usually. It's like no one knew Chadwick was gonna die. No one knew my brother-in-law was gonna die. And like the mom is trying to teach Shuri in this movie, like, death is not the end, and that's one of the big things. She's like adamant that's not true. And then like in this movie there is an ancestral plane. Like the movie has proof of life after death, right, which is kind of interesting. And depending on your faith, listener, it's part of your journey, I suppose. Like but when someone dies, like you don't get to make new memories. You don't get to make new memories with people anymore. You only have the memories that exist in your mind. And that's kind of like I said at the very beginning of this episode, when Shuri is finally burning the clothes and you see this like montage of just Black Panther. I don't know. I guess that's all we have of some people now. If I don't, whatever you believe, listener, I hope you believe that there's something after this life. Whether it's in heaven or your atoms will one day belong together in the supernova when the earth explodes. Whatever it is, you're with the people you love to some degree. So this movie, for me, will always be connected with a real-life death. And I am in no way the person to talk to when it comes to dealing with grief at all. I mean, we read Hamlet and we talk about suicide. I have a whole multiple days to kind of beg my students to never consider suicide, because there's so much badness in this world, but there's also so much good. Yeah. And that's what we try to focus on. And there is a song that plays, the Rihanna song. And it used to be on the radio a lot, which it's not so much anymore. It's the song that plays during the end credits. And I think it's not only touching, but it's very beautiful. And I looked up kind of what it means, and there's some of the writers and producers of the song. They described, they knew what the story of the movie was. So one of the guys who worked on the song said, he described the film as how you move forward while dealing with a tragic loss. All the characters, both old and new, are dealing with how loss can affect your actions in ways that are emotional and surprising. And then, after speaking with Ryan, the director, and hearing the direction of the film and the song, the writer wanted to write something that portrays a warm embrace from all the people that I've lost in my life. I tried to imagine what it would feel like if I could sing to them now and express how much I miss them. But I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the lyrics here. It's called Lift Me Up. Because the lyrics go, lift me up, hold me down, keep me close, safe and sound. I always thought it's interesting as a poem how those are contradicting things. Right. How can you lift someone up and hold someone down? Right. And I think my interpretation of it is kind of like how you deal with death. It's like you don't really know how to deal with it sometimes. Even though like the writer just said, it's like if you could talk to one person who died, what would you say? Your one message should be just let me hold you close. But I think the contradictory phrases reflect how unconventional it is to lose someone. How it feels to just having said goodbye forever. Yeah. Oftentimes not knowing what to feel. You just want them to hold you. It feels like drowning in an endless sea. Take some time and stay with me. How can you stay with someone drowning in the sea? I think it's intended to be that contradiction. It's this is what it feels like to hurt so much. Yeah. Which is kind of nice to be in this superhero movie, to end this movie, which involves a new Iron Man flying around blasting like water people, like all these explosions. But that last scene where she burns the clothes, you hear the song, it's just, I think, the most emotional the MCU is.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel that too. My mom passed away in 2022. So, yeah. I think ultimately the message of death is live so that, I don't know, live your time with the people that you love so that when they do go, because we all will, you don't have anything that I wish I would have said, I wish I would have done. So, like with my mom, I mean, there's nothing left, like, for me to say. Like, she's with me. I'm glad that she's gone, honestly, because she was in so much pain for almost my entire life. And so I, like, it, like, my letting her go was a comfort. And because I made so many sacrifices to help her and got to spend so much time with her, it was good. So,
and that's the thing, because that's how my grandpa was. It's, to some degree, sometimes it's like you need to not be suffering anymore. Yeah. It's time to let go. But then, like with my brother-in-law, he was someone who made you want to be a better person. Yeah. Like when you played games with him, he never got angry. And like you said, like, just live your life so it's like, treat people right. The people who were making fun of Chadwick Boseman's weight in that movie didn't know he had cancer, but why do you have to, like, make fun of Chadwick Boseman's weight anyway? Why do we have to be so mean and nitpicky and, like, rude all the time? It's hard because I think it's I don't know, is it the default to just think about, I don't know, like, ourselves or ignore decency sometimes? But
yeah. So there's a concept that, like, my whole year of English is built around. It's called othering. Yeah. I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast or not. Have we?
No, literally last episode with the monsters.
Oh, did we?
That's all good.
Well,
kinda.
That fits here. That fits everywhere. The cost of making other people less than you is enormous. Not just for them, and not just for you either, but for society as a whole. Like, this whole maelstrom that we're in currently politically is the direct result of that, of othering, of this need, for whatever reason, that we have, if we're not critical about it, for people to be under us, people to be less than us, people to be, suffering so that our situation seems better to us, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Ultimately, when we do get to these moments of loss, that's what eats us.
Yeah.
That's what tears us down is I treated my sibling like this so that I could feel better about myself, or my mom, or this random person that just passed away, or whatever. Like, we just need to live. I mean, it sounds cliche, but, like, we just need to live love.
Yeah, I mean, it's cliche until something like a death happens.
Sure.
And it's like,
well, I don't think it's cliche at all. But
right. I know.
Like,
I agree.
Like, it's such a thing that people like the Beatles just spew out, and all you need is love, whatever. But I feel like it's not cheap. It's not cliche. It's how the world could work. And, like, living love.
Yeah.
Is, like, ultimately solves everything, honestly. But I don't know. Well, I do know, but everyone has to arrive at that themselves.
Yeah. Cool.
So loss sucks, but it sucks less if you live love. So like I don't know, we're getting super personal, but so my mom had liver and kidney almost failure. My sister's best friend killed herself, and as a result of that, my mom got a direct donation of kidney and a liver, which she would not have gotten. And so like that experience is like the crux of what we're talking about, because on the one hand, like we all loved this girl who died, and we all loved obviously our mom. And so in this moment of loss, there's also I really don't want to sound cliche, but there's this gift of life to my mom. Yeah. And then we continue down the road. My mom had to live in a trailer for an entire summer, and she needed these treatments every single day, and they needed two people to be there. So I'm a teacher. I get the summer off. So I spent that entire summer with my mom, serving her and loving her and helping her. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Yeah. I could have been home watching Netflix and doing whatever. And so, like, that's what I'm talking about. These moments of loss don't have to be lost. They have to, like, we have the opportunity to turn them into something greater. So we lose somebody. What do we do about it? Yeah. What are we going to do with it?
That's what I think I was trying to get to with my ramblings. But
so in this movie, what does she do with her loss? Well, initially it's just pissed off. Yeah. And she's tearing things down and hurting people. Mm-hmm. Like she hurts her mother emotionally. Again, this is another one of the dichotomies that we talk about. Loss is pain, but loss is also love. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's both. And so if we can move out of the pain, and especially move out of hurting people out of our own pain, and turn it into this experience of love, and this person, like you said, your brother-in-law was this person that made you want to be a better person. So he's gone, so be a better person. And that's the love part of the loss. So so there's a couple of like really cool critical thinking quotes that at one point when Namor's taking Shuri, like very first meets her, and he's telling her the story of how his people came to be. In Namor. Yeah, she says, "How did that happen?" And Namor says, "How is never as important as why." I think why is the most important question. Yeah. Why is the start of critical thinking? Mm-hmm. So here's another quote from Namor, cut and dry. So he says, "Only the most broken people can be great leaders."
I disagree. In fact, we were talking about this in my class the other day, going over like the hero's journey. We read a couple examples of real life heroes and stuff. It's like, do you really need to have a tragic story to be a proper hero? I don't think you do.
Okay, why?
I think, it forces people to be on the right path or to be a better version of themselves sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like we read the story, Open Letter, the football player Shaquem, what's his last name, who doesn't have a hand. He's got one hand and he wanted to play football. And the fact that he didn't have a hand forced him to be so good he could be in the NFL and stuff. Yeah. So there are examples where you could be pushed, you could be turned around, or you can start a new leaf. But then again, sometimes I don't know. I think of Mr. Rogers. I don't know if Mr. Rogers had a tragic backstory, but he chose to make the world a better place.
Great leader.
Yeah.
It's not, the quote isn't broken people are the best leaders. It's because broken people frequently are broken. Like we are broken.
And I guess that's a good point too.
And so it's a matter of really, from my perspective, more about what do you do with that? Yeah. What do you do with your brokenness? Do you use it as like an explanation for poor behavior, an explanation for giving up.
Right.
Or on the other side, do you use this as like use the rubble as a stepping stool to move higher, to become stronger, so like in my case, so when I was first married, I dropped out of college to buy a business. I don't know if I've shared this already on the pod, but bought a business and was running it with, I have, because we had Martin on. He was my partner. And then literally from one day to the next day, it was gone. And so what do you do with that? So it'd be really easy to allow that to break us. Allow that to, be a defining negative moment in our lives. Or do you use that as a stepping stool? And I personally think that Namor is right in that context. Great leaders have overcome great obstacles. And that's why they are great leaders, because they understand what is needed in order to overcome things. Ideally, great leaders have a great amount of empathy because they've been down there. They've been through all of this crap. They've been like, I've lived in crappy places with waterfalls coming down from upstairs into the kitchen because we couldn't get our landlord people to go fix the upstairs bathtub. Like, we've lived there. So what do you do with that? Do you become bitter? Do you become angry? Do you become like closed off and screw the world? Or do you rise up and do you do things to change that? And even better, you become a great leader when you do things not to change it for yourself, but once you've changed it for yourself, then you do things to change it for everyone else. So,
all right,
go ahead.
I take it back. You convinced me.
You don't have to
take
it back.
I want to.
Oh my god.
No,
that is not the point.
No,
of that.
you convinced me using your use of rhetoric.
No,
your strong claims, reasons, and evidence and explanations.
I did have a good Cree there. I admit it.
I think you have to go through something. In fact, a wise man once told me, like, if you're gonna get married to someone, you should see them. How do they deal with stress? How do they deal with anger? You should do service with them. Yeah. Or you should. Someone else once said, be in a very long car ride with them that takes multiple hours just to see like what type of person.
Stand them?
Kind of, yeah. But it's like, if someone gets pushed, are they going to break or bend? Or I think that's true, because there are people in my life, or there's just people I can think of, kind of negative Nancy's. Yeah. It's like, okay, we can have a better attitude about this, I think. Mm-hmm. Whatever in their life, they think it's not so good at the moment. Yeah. You convinced me, is all I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we can let these ordeals break us, or we can let them make us. Oh dear, I didn't just do that.
Did you rhyme?
I did. I feel like we have lost the ability to rise because we get this constant stream of everything is supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be Disneyland. It's supposed to be whatever. And I feel like we've been programmed to, if something goes wrong, if somebody dies, if this thing doesn't work out, then it's over. We're broken because these other people over here, that doesn't ever happen to them. They're always doing this great whatever happy.
Definitely looks that way.
It does. We need to recover that ability to rise.
Yeah.
Life isn't always going to be happy. It isn't always going to be sunshine and roses and Disneyland and whatever.
Right.
And that's okay. Yeah, philosophically, this is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Because it does such a good job of presenting us all of these and giving us the choice, but ultimately kind of nudging us towards the choice that I think will bring us the most happiness. So rising after you fall will bring you more happiness than staying down. Accepting the pain and using it as part of what will ultimately become an expression of love is the way to happiness, rather than dwelling in the pain and saying, I've lost this sucks. Like we've already covered it, but like finding a healthy place for yourself between faith and science, between tradition and progress, between nobility and butt kicking, between duty and personal desire. I think the ultimate call of this movie is for us to wake up and stop defaulting on all of those things. Stop just running on the default that whatever you are currently doing. Wake up, analyze where you're at, and make decisions to change it so that you can be in the place that is the most powerful for you, that is the most love-filled for you, that is the most healthy for you, that is the most complete for you. Don't settle for what society says you need to be. Don't settle for what life just chucks at you. Don't settle for what your internal programming says is supposed to happen. Pull out these critical thinking tools, examine your life, and make decisions that will lead to happiness. And that's it. That's the end. I'm done.
That was beautiful.
That's my tirade.
I love that. Actually, I just have one more recommendation of The Real. Another movie that deals with loss, but not maybe so overtly that you might not realize that's what it's about. It's Asteroid City. And I've kind of talked to you about this. It's Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
I went with my wife to see this movie in theaters. And afterwards, I was like, man, I got so emotional. I was tearing up at one point. And she's like, oh. Because she didn't find any of it emotional at all.
Oh, well.
It's not everyone's cup of tea, you could say. It's very stylized. And it's because it's about like these a guy performing, like explaining the story of Asteroid City and how it was written down, and then you see the people performing Asteroid City, so it's like a meta thing in a way. The actor is talking to the director character. He's like, I don't get it. It's like, that doesn't matter, but I don't understand the story. And the director character says, it doesn't matter, you just keep telling it, which I literally interpret like sometimes life just doesn't make sense. What do you do? Just keep telling the story. Even though I don't understand it, like, yes. And then there's a beautiful moment where he goes to talk to the Margot Robbie character. And it's like, oh, we cut your scene from the movie. And then they have this back and forth where it's like, oh, this is what I would have said. And she just says, you would have said this, and I would have said that. Then you would have said this, and I would have said that. So it's not even a conversation. She has all of it. And it's kind of like back to the deaths thing. If you could have one more conversation, kind of like the Rihanna song, it's like, hold me close. But it's like, yeah, you probably say this, and I would say that. And you would say this. But like, you don't get to be part of that conversation.
Right.
Not, and like, because they're dead. But like, on its surface, it's a weird mixture of all Wes Anderson tropes, bright colors, like weird, quirky characters, even a stop motion character at one point. It's different, but at its core, there's several characters dealing with loss. Anyway, I don't know if there was a dessert of The Real. Did they eat food at one point?
I don't know. I have a couple of recommendations of The Real.
Drop them.
So on the theme of loss, so my favorite actor of all time is Robin Williams.
Yeah.
He has a magnificent movie called Awakenings. It came out when I was a teenager, probably, but it's just this, like, Robin Williams plays this extremely shy, extremely introverted doctor who has an idea to help this group of patients by
making them laugh.
No,
Patch
that's
Adams.
No,
I'm just joking.
I don't like Patch Adams as much as Awakenings. So this group of his patients are paralyzed, but they're obviously not, because like if he throws a ball at them, they will catch it. But most of the time, they look like they're paralyzed. So he has this idea: what if we, give this medicine at a really high dose that is for tremors? Anyhow. Wow. It's so beautiful because it's not a death loss, but it explores what does it mean to lose yourself, your ability to express yourself, your ability to move yourself, your ability to, and it's just beautiful movie. So I highly recommend Awakenings. Anyhow, so thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
I think that's our most personal episode.
Yeah, personal episode. There's... Oh, can I do one fun fact, please? There's a famous... I forget what the actual name is. It's something codex, where they have this super long parchment from, like, the Mayans of all these things. Their little hand thing they do, you'd be like, oh, that's just trying to be the Wakanda thing. No, there's pictures of of people doing that on that ancient fabric thing.
That's
so
cool.
It comes from a little history thing.
That's cool.
Anyway, with that, think critically.
Yeah.
We are 3 movies away from ending the MCU. I think the next movie's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's either that or Ant-Man, so...
See, this is...
What are eye rolling there for
This
you?
is such a flaw in this whole...
Oh, you don't even get a complaint because you didn't have to deal with all the TV shows on top of all of these.
This kind of a movie.
Yes, exactly.
And then we get some crap like Ant-Man. Like, I don't understand who thought that. Kevin Feige.
Yep.
It's your fault. Why couldn't you have a vision of or even like read the room? You just released this movie.
Oh, it is Ant-Man first.
You can't follow it up with some asinine freaking loser. Oh man.
Okay,
anyhow,
it's Ant-Man.
Okay. Yes, Ant-Man. I loved Ant-Man. My favorite.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
And share it with somebody that you love.
We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on Good Pods. We're on all the podcast stuff. Give us a follow. Give us an email at desertofthereelpod@gmail.com.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us. Live love.
We love you.
We do.
Bye.
I was going to say bye.